like especially when it comes around when you have like a lot of assignments, a lot, because that helps me to declutter my mind so I can focus on what I need to focus on. I think that the biggest thing on how I get a lot of the things done is because, hi guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Marianakebaso. Let's get into the video. The first thing that I do to manage my time and like get everything done is I use Google Calendar like religiously. If it's not on my Google Calendar, it doesn't exist to me. And it's bad because if I forget something, it's a disaster. But for the most part, when I'm on top of like putting things into my calendar, I stick by my calendar. I also have my Google Calendar synced with my Apple Calendar so that like my phone and stuff give me alerts of things that I have in my Google Calendar. I think it's nice in that way. I have a whole video on this, but I'll go into a little bit of how I use Google Calendar right now. So the first thing that I do is I like put in like everything that I like know for sure that I have to do or where I have to be at certain times on certain dates. So like I already know like my schedule because you know in college, whether you're in college or high school or you're a student, whatever, you know your schedule, so you can put your schedule into your Google Calendar like down to the specific time. Then for other things like for assignments and for events, I'm a little bit more lax. Like I don't usually put like the whole like time block. Like when I'm hanging out with my friends, for example, I'll just have it like as an all-day event, so it just shows up at the top of the day that is supposed to happen. But that's how I know that like, oh yeah, that day that's supposed to happen. So I'm really only strict with time when it comes to like school classes because I have to be in class on those specific times. Other than that, like I'm not super strict with my schedule outside of when I have to. This is how I make sure that I'm not missing like most things. Now you can use any like planner organization system that works for you, whether it's like a paper planner or a bullet journal or what other types of planners out there. I don't know, but use a planner, any planner. But if you don't like planners, my next tip, you'll love it, is lists. I love lists. I live by lists. Before I started using Google Calendar, I was a huge bullet journaler. If you've been watching me since like early days, you know that I used to post bullet journaling videos, but I was never like super duper consistent about it. I'd go some months where I was really consistent and other months were not so much. But I've kind of carried that bullet journaling mindset with me because I love creating lists just on the day-to-day. Like that's kind of how I plan my day-to-days or my week-to-weeks, is by creating lists of things that I need to do. So for instance, I like to create lists by classes. So like especially when it comes around when you have like a lot of assignments, a lot, I divide it by like the class, and then within that class I also say, okay, like for pharmacology I have this due and it's due this date, so I can kind of prioritize it by, okay, I have this class tomorrow, so maybe I should study tonight so that I'm a little bit prepared for class tomorrow, or I have this exam next week, I need to start studying by Monday. So I can kind of start formulating that plan not in my head because I'm getting it down on paper, but that's kind of how I start to organize and structure my days, is like based around those lists. And lists just help me to really organize my thoughts, brain dumps for me to get my words out, get stuff out of my brain and into paper, because that helps me to declutter my mind so I can focus on what I need to focus on and be more focused in what I'm focusing on. Like not just like trying to do everything at once, because humans were bad at multitasking. So it's better for you to focus on one task at a time, complete each task successively, than try to do a bunch of stuff, because then you'll just spread yourself thin and you might not be able to do everything like you planned. So now I'm going to be talking about how I prep for exams. So the first thing that I have to do is actually like figure out when my exam is. So I'll usually either go back to the syllabus or I'll refer to an announcement, and then based off of that I make a plan of how I'm going to study and how I'm going to tackle the studying within the time frame that I have. So ideally I'd give myself like 1 to 2 weeks to study for the exam, where 2 weeks is like I'm doing like maybe an hour-ish of studying for that exam, but like a week is like I'm doing maybe 2 or 3 hours of studying a day for the exam. And if you're doing an in-person exam, I'd recommend that you give yourself as much time as possible so that you're really familiar with everything, because I think that's where some people struggle on, is that they don't give themselves enough time to study for their exams, so therefore they don't feel as prepared. And when you have an exam that is kind of testing you on your preparedness, because it's closed note, closed book, then you know your grade might reflect your unpreparedness. And by figuring out like how much time I have left before my exam, I can then outline how much content I'm going to cover every day leading up to the exam. So to do this, I will either utilize the syllabus for the course, or I'll utilize just like my general knowledge, what I think is going to be on the exam. Now most professors' syllabuses are pretty straightforward. Syllabuses syllabi are pretty straightforward, and they will tell you like exactly what concepts or chapters are going to be covered on the exam. So some of that guesswork is done for you, but also when you're studying, you also kind of have to gauge your strengths and weaknesses. And this is especially when you get into a time crunch, which I've been there, done that. Like, I'm talking all of this about time management. Like, trust, there are times when I am not managing my time well, and I do cram for exams. Like, don't get me wrong, I don't recommend it, but I do it occasionally. So there's just times when you do have to prioritize, and learning how to prioritize well, I think, is a huge thing in how I have been as successful as I have been so far. So I'll talk a little bit about how I prioritize, right? So when you have an exam coming up, like let's say you have an exam coming up in 4 days, right? You have 5 chapters to cover. Okay, 4 days, 5 chapters. Already doing this simple math, that's not enough time. Not enough time to cover each chapter in depth, dedicating, you know, a day, however much time you can to study in that day to study for each chapter, right? You already don't have that. So you need to go into each chapter and now look at the individual concepts and test yourself on those concepts and see how well, or not test yourself on the concept, but ask yourself as you're going through each, you know, chapter or each topic, do I know this? Do I really know this? Do I want to do more practice? I don't know if you're on it. Like, if I saw an exam question on this, what would happen? Would I be like, oh yeah? Or would I be like, or would I be like, ha? You know, like all the different types of reactions, right? So why am I forgetting what I was saying? Yeah, so learning how to prioritize in that way is good. But also for me, I do make it a purpose that regardless of whether I'm cramming or not for an exam, I do try to review everything at least once. So even if I have 5 chapters in 4 days, I'll spend the first day like just going over everything, even if it's just like a brief referral, like okay, just going over it. And then I spend the next 2 days kind of hammering in on my weaker areas. And it's been like the last day just making sure I've done like huge overview of everything, and I have looked over everything at least once, because every single time that I have decided to skip over something or not focus on it, or the professor won't ask that, they do. So don't be like me. Don't think that you are the exception to the rule, because you're not. That's a little harsh, but yeah, just for me in personal experience, every single time that I have prioritized something else and neglected a specific area of content, it just has not worked out well for me. So make sure that when you're managing your time, when you're planning making your outline for how and what you're gonna study, that you include everything at least once, okay? And this is where you would refer to like a study guide or something if you received it from a professor, or this is where you would make your own study guide, which I'm going to make a whole video on how I make my own study guides for exams, and I will share that with you guys very soon. And there's many different ways to review for your exams. I have talked about this so much on my channel, but just really quickly, I like to use the tape tool in GoodNotes. I like to use my whiteboard method, Quizlet, Anki, flashcards, things like that. And I also really like looking up YouTube videos or just explanations online for things that I'm really not understanding, or looking it up in the textbook. So usually if I don't understand something, I'll look it up in the textbook. The textbook doesn't help me, then I'll look it up online. If Google doesn't help me, sometimes a YouTube video is more helpful, or I'll flip-flop with like the Google YouTube video order. But that's kind of like the general progression of how I try to deal with issues that I'm having with something on my own. And this is more so when it comes to cramming. If you're not cramming, which you shouldn't be, then you'll have time to go to professors with questions for your exam. So ideally, you know, you start going over content preemptively, so that way you have enough time to actually still go to the professor with your questions and get them answered in due time, and not like, you know, 11:58 the night before the exam, your friend's like emailing the professor like, hey, you know, whatever. Like, there's so many times when I've been studying like last minute for an exam, and I'm like, damn, if I had started studying earlier, I would have been able to ask the professor about this. But just for the sheer fact that I didn't start studying early, I just missed out on that opportunity, and that was just like a missed learning opportunity. So in that instance, I was not able to accomplish everything that I wanted, but I was still able to get the grade I desired. So it's like means to an end, you know? And then the last thing that I have to say about how I get everything done is that you have to realize that at some point, something's gotta give. So like for me, for instance, when I am like grinding at school and I'm doing absolutely great, everything and all my class, like I'm on top of everything, sometimes I go months without seeing my friends that don't go to my school. And that's just the truth, okay? Like, me and my friends, we cannot be hanging out every single weekend and have money in our bank accounts and be doing well in class. Like, it's not possible. Something's gotta give. And not to say that, like, you know, don't hang out with your friends or, like, you know, neglect your social life or whatever, because that's not true. Like, I see my friends that go to my school probably at least every day, if not every other day. But I'm talking about, like, for my friends that don't go to school, or they go to college in a different state, or we're just separated by distance, geography, right? We don't see each other as often, but they understand that, you know, I value school. It's important to me. So when school is on, like, it's gonna be my first priority. But I do still try to take the time every day, not every day, but often, to talk with my friends and plan hangouts, plan parties, do fun stuff that is gonna, you know, sometimes it's a reprieve in between school. A lot of the times though, I do end up hanging out with my friends like over breaks, over winter break, over summer break, because it's just the most convenient time for both of us. And it's real, it's sad, but it's true. Like, something's gotta give. Unless you have like unlimited funds, maybe you're okay with your GPA going down a little bit, hang out with your friends every single weekend is really important to you, then by all means go for it. But understand that, like, when you take something, you also have to give something in return. So it reminds me of that meme. It went around for a couple years. I'm not even that old, but I feel like this meme is really old. It's like the triangle meme where it's like, oh, you can only have 3, or there's like 3 options, but in college you can pick 2 out of 3. And it's like good grades, a social life, and like a full 8 hours of sleep. And it's true, because you cannot have all 3. You can try, but it's going to, something in that triangle is going to give. You're either going to lose out on sleep to have a social life and have good grades, or your grades are gonna slip so you can have sleep and have a social life, or you're gonna have sleep and a social life, then your grades are gonna dip, or you're gonna have sleep and grades but your friends are not gonna see you for a bit. So it's really just, you have to determine like what's important to you at this time. What are my future goals? I think also that's a big thing. Actually, this is gonna be like my last caveat, I promise. But like, I think that the biggest thing on how I get a lot of the things done is because I'm not just doing the things that I do in my life for like nothing. And I know that this is like, okay, how do I phrase this? Like, I think that it's really important as humans, just in general, that we have goals and that we have something that we're striving for, even if it's just something little. Like, it could just be like, hey, I want to do really well so that next week when Megan's new documentary comes out, I can watch it and I will feel great watching it because I know that I've done all my work and I'm just now relaxing and watching this new documentary or this new movie or this. Like, just having like something small that you can look forward to, I think is really important. But even just more than just that, oh, like that's something small to look forward to like in the moment or in the week or month or whatever. I think it's also important to have really large, lofty goals because they give you something to strive towards too, and it drives your life. It drives everything that you do. When you have this big goal that you want to achieve, how I see my goals is, okay, I have this big goal, but how do I get there? I have to start where I am right now. Okay, I have this goal, I'm here, I have to work up to get to this goal. And the only way I can work up and get to this goal, you know, in the timeline that I want, in the desired, like, you know, whatever, time constraints, whatever, then there's certain things that I have to do in this moment to reach that. And I'm constantly like reevaluating, and I think this is important too. Okay, I've gone on many caveats now, but also to like reevaluate. Like sometimes when you're doing, you know, you're going through the motions every day to try to achieve that goal, I think it's also important to constantly reevaluate that big goal is still what you want, because it's okay to like, you know, change your mind and decide you want to do something else, decide that it's not fulfilling for you anymore. But okay, now I've gone into, I could talk about this forever. Okay, I found the topic that I can talk about forever. It's your future. So I obviously need to make more videos about this, but I'm not gonna go into like how, yeah, I'm not gonna go into that because I could literally sit here for another 10 minutes talking about that, and I'm on a time crunch. Okay, like I just talked about how to get everything done. I'm filming this video after a long day of studying, but I know I need to film this video and get it up for you because I want to film this video. I want to get this video up for you guys. I want to be consistent on YouTube in 2025, and I'm gonna do it, and you guys are gonna be there for me as I'm doing it. Okay, so yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and if you did, be sure to leave a like and comment down below. Comment below any other, you know, how I get everything done, time management tips that you want to see from me, and I'll be sure to respond. I respond to every single comment. And yeah, that's it for this video. Bye guys.